There we go. All righty. Official start to January 2025 Biosafety Committee. I'm still in the saying 2024 all the time. Biosafety Committee meeting. We did not receive any public comment or questions ahead of time, and I don't see anyone online. So we can move right along. Let me go bring up the minutes. And actually, it looks like Ed maybe was not at that meeting. So, share the screen. All right. Did anyone have any, I know this feels like eons ago. Did anyone have any questions, concerns, edits, comments about the minutes? They were pretty brief. It was a pretty short meeting, adjourned at 9:12.
I did not, and if there's no other comments, then I do make a motion that we accept the minutes from September 3rd.
I second that motion.
Excellent. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Justin?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Sai?
Aye.
And Julie? Aye. All right. Excellent. So now the next like three pieces are really kind of one blob that I've separated out to kind of make it easier to approach the discussion, which is kind of just what are we doing with the permit renewals that are coming up. So the permits are due May 30th. And, you know, last year was our first year doing it and we got through it, but it was a little bit, you know, piecemeal, figuring out as we go. And so I'd like to approach it from a little bit more organized standpoint this year, and really just give us the opportunity to see if we like the process. So, yep, May 30th is the permit renewal date. I want to kind of figure out if there is a timeline that we should sort of set out, mostly in planning out these meetings. I want to make sure, I like getting the meetings on the calendar with enough time that everyone can pick the meeting time that works for them and make sure it works for them. And so we're not crunching to kind of figure out when we meet or how we meet. And then sort of figure out where the role of the committee is in review. So, you know, where does it go from when Sai and I receive the permit renewal applications and we kind of give them a first glance to sending them to the committee to when do we deem it appropriate to meet as a committee to talk about it, or do we think it's appropriate to meet?
Do we have so you said the deadline for them to file is 30 May?
Sai, how do you handle this with permits? Because I think technically the renewal process is supposed to be done by May.
Right. Okay, got it. So that's the thing too, is to potentially make it a 45-day review period between when the applicant should be submitting and then when we need to make a decision and certify it.
So I think last year that was sort of where things kind of, not they went wrong, because we figured it out and everybody got it in. But I think maybe this year, tackling it with that perspective in mind of we need to give X days, we need to kind of badger them to get their materials in on time so that we're not reviewing past that deadline. Sai, I don't know what your sort of level of success with this is. We have a smaller contingent. We have, you know, only a handful of renewals that will come in, but
so
is that how you handle it?
Their permit expires on May 30th. So technically we should be issuing a new permit before the May 30th deadline. It could be well before that deadline. And that's okay. I think last year we gave them 25 days because we were still working on the application process and scheduling inspections. In addition to this, I believe like the actual renewal process, they say like their operations have not changed that much. It should be a quicker inspection and quicker application renewal as well. For most other like environmental health permit renewals, I give them at least a month, but I would suggest giving at least like maybe 2 months or up to 45 days. So 45 days to 60 days before we create that renewal campaign and send out reminders about like your permit renewal is expiring. on such and such date, please get your applications in, and the automatic renewal reminders will go out every like 2 or 3 weeks. So it'll be our initial reminder to go out, another 2 or 3 weeks, another email reminder will go out, and hopefully we'll get those applications in. And we'll only have 5 applications for this type of permit, so we can always reach out to them independently as well.
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, it's 45 or 60 days is fine. I would honestly say if someone is seeking a first time application, that it might even goes a little higher, because obviously there's going to be more documentation to verify. Probably there could be even some meetings that are going to be scheduled for further clarification of submission. So maybe even saying 60 days for new, and then 45 or 30 or whatever for renewal, because that's, like you said, Si, is going to be more of a just a re-verification of things, not a full review.
When companies start, though, if it's like a brand new application, they're probably not operating yet, right? So it's probably unlikely to line up with like our annual cycle. So I almost think that that's almost like an entirely separate process, and it's like open-ended. It's like if you have a really complicated application, we're going to take as long as we need to vet that.
That's a good point.
And then I don't know if they come on cycle, if depending on how long their permit is. Like if they apply for a permit in November, I think we can give them like a deal on the fee or something. But
I think most places will do. They'll if they're given an off-cycle thing, it's because we want to keep them back onto the May. So if they come in November, they're only going to get a 4-month permit, and then they're going to have to reapply.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which I actually think happened quite a bit last time. We had new applicants that kind of dragged out for a while, and then the permit cycle came back in May. And I remember people being like, what are we doing? And we just have to keep everybody on the May cycle to make it easier.
And then we probably have to come up with some sort of, and this is going to be Board of Health or Tim or whatever, to come up with whether they'll waive a fee if you're only going to get a permit for 3 months, of whether we're going to have them go through and resubmit a recertification fee and have them pay the entire thing. So that would have to work out something, maybe we could see what other towns do, but I think it's unreasonable if we'd have to come up with, like, if it's under 6 months, then it's
half,
50% or something like that, just so that we don't come off as trying to just get money from from companies, because I don't know how much it is. I don't think it's cheap. Knowing Needham, but just putting that out there. No.
So I think you probably do experience this frequently, right?
Yeah, so normally we don't prorate any fees. So like if it depends. Like if someone's applying for a permit and the permit expires within 30 days, I let it go. But if it's like 3 months or longer a period, I don't prorate the fees and I charge them again. I think the biosafety permit renewal fee right now is $500.
Yeah, right, that's fine. Okay.
And then for a plan modification, it's $250.
That seems reasonable.
That's fine. Yeah, okay.
Okay. So I think that all sounds good. I think maybe we'll set up I think you taught me how to do this last year. The campaign to start going out 45 days before. I think because we have so few applicants, I will reach out to them personally to just, hey, hello, reminder, we're going to be sending this out. You're going to get emails from the system, because I know that was an issue last year, is I think people didn't realize it comes from this automated system, or, unfortunately we had a couple instances where the primary contact had actually changed. So the primary contact from last year was receiving the email notifications, but the people, someone else in the lab who may now be responsible for renewing this permit was not receiving them. So I'll reach out to the actual, the lab contacts that we had met with on the inspections before, to just say, hey, you're going to be receiving these reminders, and, reach out to us if there are questions and concerns. That way we're coming across as, friendly and approachable, and not, I don't know.
Perhaps, also, does the system have the capability of logging a secondary or tertiary contact just to verify too, in case of attrition or, somebody gets fired and whatever, then, because we all know that happens in biotech fairly often. So at least, we have somebody of record that the system can send to.
Yeah. And I think it's particularly important because a lot of companies were doing work with consultants. So they would bring consultants in for this, and those consultants shift out of the job. And so it's important that, at least the lab contact is aware that this is happening, because that was definitely causing us some issues last year.
Okay.
All right. So we'll start and say 45 days.
We want to have like the 45 days prior to the end of May be like the deadline, and then you open it up for any sort of period before then. Because I know personally I handle this for my company. I like doing it on my own time. So if it's open for like a month or two beforehand, like I'm going to do it when I have free time, which ebbs and flows. And so if there's like a relatively open, like, renewal open period, you must have your application done by mid-April, right? For a permit to be renewed end of May. I don't know, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That way that gives us plenty of time afterwards. People that come in really early, like if someone's like, oh, hey, let's renew it, I got time right now. Then we can get applications as soon as like end of February or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, so
that sounds good to maybe even open the campaign up, end of February, middle of February, before even the reminders, then maybe send the reminders out, but at least it gives an opportunity for people to fill it out early, which I think would help.
Okay, great. So we'll open it. Yeah, it doesn't hurt to have it open, and reach out to people and let them know, hey, it's open and you can start working on it. And that should ensure that we're getting them in, I would think, by that, if we say that 45-ish days, and that gives us as a committee plenty of time to look them over and decide if there needs to be any follow-up back and forth. Or I know, it was helpful to have the someone from the company come on to that initial meeting when we were discussing the applications, and that could certainly happen again if we have any questions about their renewal. Again, if they were to say, wow, a lot has changed in the last year, which for some of these companies is certainly possible because they were very new. They were just starting their operations for the most part when we processed their initial applications. Okay, great. And then that will give us sort of based on what people are submitting, that will give us an idea and probably give us a lot of time to schedule a meeting or meetings if necessary. And then I think last year, again, we were a little bit tough on the timeline front, but I think I'm just planning to, I'll put the materials all together in like a PDF, and then send the materials your way, and we can make a decision on whether, we want it to just be, hey, we've reviewed and everyone says nothing's really changed, go ahead, or I feel a little bit concerned, I have questions about this and we need to meet. And we can certainly decide that based on what people submit. All right. Then the next question sort of is inspections. So I know we had discussed last year after the inspections, sort of we found nothing extraordinary. It was really nice to connect with the labs and get to, meet these lab contacts in person. It was a really pleasant experience. Again, quite a few of the labs were just getting up and started. So we were like seeing them not really in operation. We were seeing them sort of at the beginning of their work. And a lot of them had consultants in who were really making sure things were running smoothly. I know we discussed sort of not inspecting any more frequently than, and I think we had even said maybe once a year may not be necessary, depending. I think, I don't know, we can readdress. I don't think we keep it very vague in our regulation to basically say inspections as necessary or something like that. Do we still feel like, yes, we want to pair an inspection along with every permit renewal?
Ideally, we want to, it's a trust and verify thing, but, but That's me. I mean, you guys are the ones that do the
Discretionary? I don't know. Like biosafety level 1 labs who seem to have all their stuff together.
right.
Maybe not. Maybe you classify it by biosafety level like that. You say, okay, biosafety level 2 labs will inspect annually. BSL 1 labs we won't. Or, if you're the one doing the inspections and you had kind of an odd inspection the year before, maybe you flag it to like inspect it again. Maybe you reserve the right to inspect annually, but then you decide. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend at least the annual inspection. At least we could meet with them face to face, see the laboratory, like create that relationship. If we like go a year, like 2 years where we don't see each other and there's an incident or something happens, it's kind of rougher to handle those situations when we don't have that relationship built. So I would maybe recommend at least doing that once a year kind of thing for at least the biosafety 2, which is all the laboratories we have in town anyway.
Yeah. How many do we have actually? Is there like a number?
We have 5.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's not that bad.
Yeah, okay. So annually is not that bad then.
Yeah, it's been definitely a I think Cy and I both had it on our radar when we did the inspections last year. We had said, oh gee, this is, if we were to really gain a lot of labs, we would need to figure out how to address this in the future. And I know other municipalities are very much struggling with this on their end. They're either not doing inspections or they're hiring out consultants for inspections. But yeah, we've got 5 now, so it's pretty manageable. I do agree, Cy. I think it was a really good relationship builder last year, if anything else, and sort of reminded them that, we're not necessarily just here to police. We're also sort of here for them to come to us before there are issues. And I do think, this year will be an interesting set of inspections because I think it was 3 out of the 5 maybe were brand new companies. Maybe it was 4 out of the 5. And so they were very much at the beginning of their operations. And I think this inspection will look very different now that they're a year plus into their work.
Cool.
And then, I think we used sort of a checklist last year for things. We didn't run it through like a checklist. It was sort of just things we kept our eyes on as we were walking through. And then we asked some very basic, really mostly safety questions about how employees are made aware of safety protocols and trainings and things like that. And we can just plan to share those notes with the committee. And again, based on what you see, we can choose to meet if there's something that is sticking out, or we can choose to just, hey, these look good, no problem, and pass it on. I think a lot of it is just dependent on what we see. And again, what is submitted in these permit renewals. Inspection frequency, okay. And then, really we're just going to go through the current permit renewal application, which Cy, I feel like I don't see you in the office anymore, but I have questions for you sort of on this process, which is really that, let me share my screen so that we can go through the process. Why does Zoom look different? All right. Can you see the permit application?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So this is just sort of me going through and pretending I'm creating a new, record here. And I guess, Cy, to start this conversation, sort of my question for you is, when I select initial registration or renewal change in use, like the application looks the same. And I can't tell if that's an error on our part, or did we decide to keep it that way? Or is this because I am not a biosafety company saying, I'd like to renew my permit and I'm starting a new record? I don't know if you happen to know this.
It shouldn't look that way. For the attachment section.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Not that we don't ask for anything vastly different. I remember when we went through this, but I think this definitely reads like I'm submitting materials for the first time.
Yeah, I know for the actual form aspect, that will auto-populate for each of the applicants that are renewing. So like when they click the renew button, it will automatically pull in information from the previous year's application, and it'll be up to the applicant to change any information that's on there to update it. So we should probably put a statement on like the beginning of the application saying to like update the information on there on an annual basis before they submit the renewal. So we should state that on there for sure.
Right.
I just discovered that like 2 months ago, like from one of the IT people, that that's how it actually occurs. So I was super confused about other applications why that was occurring. For the attachments, I think there's only like one thing that is supposed to pop up when records being renewed that they need to submit, which is the annual report summarizing their work from the past year. It's possible that the other attachments are automatically pulled from last year's application, but I'm not completely sure.
So that was going to be my other question, because if not, that's not a huge deal. But I definitely, in reaching out to the companies, if that is not the case, if it doesn't auto populate what they submitted last year, I will plan to send those back to them as a reminder of the documents that they had previously submitted.
And then there's an opportunity for them to update any of those docs, right?
So I think these blocks where we have the attachments here, like here's the question. Yeah, I guess it would be good to know if it sort of pre-filled in, like their last year's document was uploaded here, sitting here, or not. But we do need to make sure that we tell people these documents need to be updated. And there's where I think the wording, and if we're able to change this from the initial application to the permit renewal, it would be nice to include wording in all of these to sort of say an updated blah blah blah, you know, copy of IBC minutes from the last year, list of.
Yeah, I mean, we should be asking for all this information. I mean, I get it that maybe, or at least a check mark to indicate that you're certifying that there's been no change to the previously submitted, but we should be asking for. I don't think that's too much of a. I mean, John, you do this for your company. I don't know if it's truly that much of a heavy lift to resubmit documentation, because we constantly update our manuals, on an ongoing basis. But we're also like a massive company, so a smaller company may not be doing that.
Yeah, manuals not so much, but we have like new project registrations that come through all the time that gets approved by the IBC. So those aren't necessarily IBC minutes, but they'd be referenced in the minutes because the minutes would say we approved new project registration D.
Right.
But there would just need to be a place to like upload that new registration and any other supporting docs. But yeah, agreed to some aspect, flagging, okay, this is what you uploaded before. If there's no changes, click a box. If there are changes, re-upload or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Something in that kind of world, I think is also good.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's fine to have them re-upload, that's totally okay. But I think, yeah, I think I want to make sure that we're clear that if there are changes, go back and make them, and don't, if it does pre-populate or pre-attach what you attached last year, that people are taking a second to say, is this the most current version?
Yeah.
So I can see if I can find out, like, does it include previous attachments? And then I think it's just a matter, there are some, IBC members, has that changed in the last year? Or IBC minutes, from the last year. Doesn't have to be all that you've ever had, just if you met once or twice, whatever it is. I know the frequency depends from company to company. And then, yes, you're right. We definitely had intended to have them kind of just give us a brief summary of what work has been going on in the last year and what changes occurred, which kind of gives us a nice summary to look at to identify if maybe we need to look closer at some of their documents. Okay.
So Julie, the way that we could probably achieve what we're kind of discussing is that we could add conditions to each of the attachments, and then make an attachment required when it's an initial registration, and then make a different type of attachment required when it's in a renewal. So we could double up everything and choose which ones we want to remove from the renewal application. So I could kind of discuss that with you offline. We could get that done.
Okay. All right. And then I think, as this goes, we'll work on this now because we have to take the permit offline quickly to make these changes, basically. And then the permit will come back online again. And we obviously want to make sure that that is done and we like the way it is before we ask people to start submitting, because I think this even had happened last year where we fiddled with it and made some changes. And then it obviously means those changes don't even if you've opened up the permit, it doesn't make those changes for them. It only makes it if you haven't started the permit yet. So we'll make sure that we have this done and maybe just send screenshots like this out just to get your okay on it. Or, one of those, hey, just respond if you have issues with it. Otherwise, we'll move forward. And then we'll plan to open up the applications, and I'll send an email out to the companies to just say, hey, it's open, and go ahead and start working on it whenever you can. All right. Any other issues, questions, thoughts on the permit application? Oh my gosh, I'm purple.
I did really like the input field of like the biologics that are in use, but I wonder if the wording, so in the top attachment, to back up a sec, that top attachment, I really like that wording, is this should include biologics in use, organisms, infectious agents, cell lines, constructs, etc. And I think it might be worth considering copying that language to there's an input field about organisms. List organisms being used.
Okay.
If we change that to be a little bit more broad and all-encompassing, it could almost be the exact same language as below.
Okay.
That's typically a really good snapshot into like what the company biosafety wise has been potentially changing. If they're adding a bunch of cell lines, things have changed. And so then you can kind of match that to their project registrations and everything else in the attachments to make sure that everything's kind of aligned.
Okay.
Because then if they don't fix the attachment, they at least had the field that changed. They're like, oh yeah, we're using Staph aureus now. And that's like nowhere in any of the attachments. Then you know that something changed.
Yes. Okay. That's great.
Or cell lines, because if you don't put cell lines or like replicating mRNA constructs or something, they're not going to put it in that field.
Yes. Okay. Yes, absolutely.
And I don't even know if you want to put like at a high level or, I don't know how you make it so they don't have to, if they're using 17 strains of E. coli, they don't feel compelled to write that. But
yes.
I don't know how you word that, but at a high level, like what organisms, strains, and stuff are you with more detail? I don't know, parentheses with more detail to be found in attachments below, or I don't know, something like that. But that's a great call out, so I appreciate that.
Okay, great.
And we don't allow 3, right? Biosafety level 3.
We technically can, but it would require a variance.
Right.
So we would have to, as a committee, meet and grant a variance. So yeah, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't allow it at base.
Okay.
And I think, in our original kind of discussion, I think that would be pretty rare and extraordinary here. I don't know that I envision a BSL-3 company coming here, but
yeah, fair.
Yeah, we would. I can't remember how we have it written in our reg, but yeah, we basically say by a variance that would require us to meet and discuss if it's appropriate.
I feel like we would almost feel compelled to like hire consultants to like check out their facilities and stuff, because that's a whole can of worms.
Yeah. And do we do 2+?
Yeah, I guess we don't have anything explicitly written in our regulation about 2+. So we can certainly go back and edit though if we feel that we want to.
Sure.
That's like the argument that like 2+ isn't really a thing, but it's like
it's like tuberculosis. Yeah, it's that range of like, I want to play with stuff that's a little bit, but it's not gonna, it's not Ebola or anything like that. But yeah, like Dana-Farber has 2+ labs, and
all the companies I've worked for are at 2+, because it's all
But we should probably carve that out to, what is that categorically? Is it a 2+, something like that? We probably should, obviously there is a slowdown in biotech, expansion into the suburbs. So it's probably, we're not going to be overwhelmed pretty soon with like, significant amount of permit applications, but we probably should take a look at 2+, because it is not uncommon.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, while there isn't expansion happening now, I think everybody hope, has hope that it will recover, it will come back, and we want to be prepared, right? It was like when we kind of came out with this regulation, there weren't a ton of companies, but we anticipated the potential for a lot of companies, and it's better to be ahead of it and have thought about it now. So I agree. And we can always plan to, take another swat at reviewing the regulation and just making sure it covers everything that we want it to. And if it doesn't, we can make some changes.
At least Muzzy right now is going to be housing, it looks like.
Really, I've been curious about this, because that was really the thing that launched this.
Yeah, no, I know it. But there was actually just about 2 days ago, they came and were poking around to the planning department to see the interest of, we'd have to make some changes to the use case and zoning, but it looks like it's, potentially retail and housing is probably the use case that they're seeking for, 2026, 2027. Still a long way away, but they got nothing from labs for anyone. They've been kind of keeping that open because that's obviously more lucrative for them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Dang it. I wanted to work. I was like, this is the future plan. Work 2 miles down the road. Let's do it.
Now, we did just approve, the planning board did just approve, it wasn't biosafety. I think they're going to be some sort of light manufacturing over off Kendrick, but they may or may not seek biosafety. I'm not sure, but it'll be, might even be a one. But.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, Muzzy was the thing that really, it was emails about that sort of launched us to start to think about this. So yes. Wow, that's interesting.
Kendall, I think the vacancy in Kendall is still like 40% or something.
Oh yeah,
it's unprecedented. It's the most vacant Kendall's been in like 20 years or something. Lab space.
Wow.
But it's still expensive. My company might actually move to like Lexington or something. Maybe Needham. I don't know.
Not Needham, yeah.
I'll bring our CEO's from Lexington, so she's like trying to pull us there, which is kind of unfair. But I'll throw Needham in the hat.
Sure.
Look how great the Biosafety Committee is. I mean,
the permit process is seamless.
All right. So I think if everyone feels good about sort of what we've discussed, Cy and I will start taking a swing at making just those little tweaks to the permit renewal process. Again, we'll send it out via email, and I'll just do sort of don't respond if you're good with it. Let me know if you're not. And then we'll just we'll open up the renewal application, let people know we've opened it up and they can submit anytime, and then set that due date at like 45 days beforehand, because, as usual, I'm sure it takes a little bit of badgering. Mm-hmm. And then once we see what's been submitted, and we can pass along what's been submitted as it's happening so that it's not all stacked at the end. And then we can decide based on, whatever is in the applications, whether we want to meet, and we'll stay in touch about scheduling the inspections, which we'll plan to have those again done before that permit renewal date. Great. Any other questions, concerns, etc.?
Nope.
All right. Then I guess if we're feeling good about it, if we can have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Can someone
Motion to adjourn.
second?
Oh, yes, yeah. Oh, you had said.
I'll second it. You know.
I never know what's going on here. All right. We'll do a roll call. Justin,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Sai,
Aye.
and Julie. Aye. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.